Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by Leigh Ashton, founder and CEO of the Sales Consultancy. How are you today, Leigh?
I'm excellent, thank you. Happy, healthy, and excited about the podcast.
Happy, healthy and excited. I think that's probably one of the best ways to start anything in life. It's just a good mantra to live by. Thank you for being here. I'm so thrilled you are here. And I guess the first question we can just kick this off with is just you doing a little bit of an explanation of what the sales consultancy is, what you guys do, and who you serve.
Okay, so I am passionate about mindset. So I've come up through a sales background, and my passion is sales mindset. So we work with organizations that have sales teams and sales leaders, and we shift the way they think so that they are able to achieve more success. Because it's like skills is one thing, but mindset is
Mm.
everything. You can know how to do something, but that doesn't mean you do it. So we do some mindset bending that helps people be more of who they really are. And it's a real joy to do it. I've been doing it for such a long time. I feel like just so blessed.
It's obvious that you love it, which is like your whole face lights up when you talk about it, which is so nice to see. And I love the sales conversation as well, especially when I talk to sort of sales trainers, sales coaches, because it's one of those things that I think people are super daunted by, but then other people absolutely love it, and it seems that it's a real like black or white type situation. But for you, in your opinion, in the most frank way, why do you think people get sales so wrong?
Well, I think people get it wrong because they think it's some black magic or a dark art. And also, there's a lot of negative association around sales because none of us as human beings like being sold to.
Yeah, but
So
we love buying.
yeah, we love buying. So I always say to most people who are really nervous about it, stop selling.
Mm,
And I will say just share what you do. Be interested in the other person. Find out about them. Find out about their problems. And if you can help them, help them.
yeah, it's
So I think that people get it wrong because they think they have to be a certain type. They try to be someone that they're not. And the minute any human being tries to take on a persona that's not them, they come across as false
mm,
and inauthentic. And that is it repels people
yeah.
rather than engages people. And then they go away and go, I can't do this sales stuff. I'm just not built like that. But the interesting thing is that everything that makes a salesperson a great salesperson is stuff that we do as a human being naturally. So I'll give you an example. If you share your opinion with another person, in sales, that's called pitching. You don't know whether the other person's going to agree with your opinion, but it doesn't stop you
Hmm.
stating your opinion. And then if that other person says, well, I don't think it's like that at all. This is what I think it's like. And then you start having a little conversation with your friend about what you thought of this or that. In sales, that's called negotiation. So
Yeah.
it's up when you realize that it's just being a good human being and being able to communicate something that's important, it becomes much easier. And people who are more themselves actually become greater salespeople.
And do you think getting people to become more themselves is mainly a confidence issue in terms of their ability, or is it more of an understanding of, I guess, what the core of a sale is? Like you said, it's just a conversation.
Yeah. I think that in a funny kind of way, you have to understand the science of sales to forget about being a salesperson.
You have
So
to
you have
fully
to
understand it to not
understand.
know it.
Yeah, it's like you have to know how to open a conversation. You have
Yeah.
to know how to communicate. You have to know how to listen. You have to know what questions to ask and when to ask those questions so that rather than it being a haphazard conversation. It's more strategic, but you do it in your own style of
Yeah.
personality. So the way Leigh Ashton has a conversation, a sales or business conversation, may not be right for you, Stephen, or right for, anyone who is watching this right now. But you'll have your own version. And when you find that version that works for you, it's so natural. It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
And the other person feels comfortable because you're really comfortable. So it's not about finding yourself. It's about understanding the science and then being yourself as you deliver the science in your own way.
What's compelled you to do this? What's compelled you to help others improve their sales, get better at that conversation? Because obviously you're an expert, so your ability to sell is, I guess, from the outside in, pretty up there, pretty easy. So you have the ability to, if you know how to sell, you can effectively sell anything if you're passionate about it. So for you, why do you want to help so many people? Why do you always get drawn into that sort of world?
Okay. Well, it's as I got into sales by accident, as most people
Such
do.
a common story, that, isn't it?
It's honestly, I got into sales by accident. I was working in finance, and somebody said to me, "I think you'd be great at selling." And I went, "Oh no, 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 no!
You're
That
like,
is
not me.
not me, no." But I couldn't get the thought out of my head. So a week later, I said to them, I'm going to I'm going to apply for a job and go for an interview. And if I'm meant to be in sales, I'll get the job. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. And so when I got into sales, I realized that, my word, this is such a great job. I just love it. I'm getting paid to talk with people all day long. And I was walking around the city. The city was my territory in my first sales job, just knocking on doors, because we're talking about the 80s here. This is before mobile phones or
Yeah.
internet or anything. So I was walking into places, just chatting with people, loving people. And because I didn't really know what I was doing, I'd be asking them questions about what do you do outside of work, and just generally being interested to hide the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. But then the sales would come anyway, just because I was just genuinely interested. And that was all really cool. And then 3 years after that, I'd been super successful, top three in the country in my sales job. They promoted me to sales manager. And that's when the pain started. And that led to such a huge frustration, because I thought, I'm going to teach all of my team to do the stuff that I do, and we're all going to be so successful. And what
In
I
your head,
found,
were you like, I'm just gonna get them to replicate me?
yeah, I'm going to get them to replicate me, which was the big mistake, right? Now I know that. But back then I thought, this is incredible. And then I found that eventually that people fell into three camps. And the first camp was, Leigh, that's amazing. And off they would go and do the things that I did and get success. The second camp was, Leigh, that's amazing. And off they would go and carry on doing what they were already doing, they'd always been doing. And the third was, that won't work for me or my territory. And I couldn't figure out why people wouldn't do something that would help them be more successful, or why they wouldn't do something the way that I did it. And that led me down the path of psychology. So the pain and frustration I felt as a sales leader then opened the window, the door to that psychology and neuroscience and quantum and all of the stuff that makes a person behave in the way that they do. And I realized that the biggest joy I got after that was helping people think differently, so that they could be more of themselves. And there's such a joy in that. It's like, when you see a child get on a bike and they fall over and they get up and they fall, and then they ride that bike and they're so full of joy, and you're so full of joy. They're riding their bike through the park, and it's like, that's that feeling. I
That
get it
it's
every
that
single
physical
time.
moment that you can see someone realize they can do something.
Yes, it's so invigorating, so enlivening for me and for them
Is there a
and for
story that
people
you
watching.
is there a story that you look back on now and it gives you that, is that like one that stands out for you that just makes you go, that was an amazing success story for that person because of what how you helped them?
Well, there are so many because, in 1995, I started the sales consultancy to do just that. And I guess one of there's a story that's quite interesting in that I was working with this recruitment consultancy, and there was one of the managers there who was just phenomenal. She would arrive before anyone arrived. She would leave last.
Hmm.
She was successful, but she was so driven. I thought, here is someone who is heading for burnout.
Mm.
And what in a one-to-one that I had with her, I was doing some coaching with her, and we uncovered a story that was because I was so curious what drives her so hard. She
Yeah.
just had a baby, and she'd like
Wow.
had the shortest amount of time out of work, and she had this baby, and she was doing this stuff, and she was frazzled. And I said, when was the first time that you ever felt like you had to push? And she shared a story with me. She was Austrian, I think, and I can't remember what country she was from, but it was one of those countries where at the age of 4, they decide whether you can go to school or not,
Hmm.
whether you're ready for school or whether you should have more play. So you can start at 4 or 5 in this
Wow.
particular country at the time that she was that age. And she remember, she had this memory of sitting next to her mum, and they said to the mum, we don't think she's ready for school.
As a
So
4-year-old.
as a 4-year-old, and so, but in her childlike mind, it was, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And from that moment, she pushed herself beyond any kind of
Amazing.
level of sensibility, because there's drive and then there's drive beyond good judgment.
Yeah. See, what I love
Uh,
about that though, and because I'm fascinated by sort of neuroscience and psychology and everything like that, that as a 4-year-old, at that moment, she was given effectively a choice whether to go, right, am I going to be defined by that potential belief of I'm not good enough? And actually, she could have gone down a road where she didn't put much effort into things, and she just stood by that belief of going, yeah, well, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to try, I'm never going to put myself out there because of that. But actually, subconsciously or consciously, who knows, more likely subconsciously at that age, she like you said, she pushed herself. She was like, I'm gonna prove them wrong, I'm gonna
yeah.
put myself in situations which means that even if perhaps that belief is potentially real in that situation, I'm gonna still achieve and over deliver. Which
Yeah.
just I think that's such a lovely story. And it fascinates me that every single person has a moment like that.
Yes, for sure. And depending on their psychology or their psychological preferences will determine which way they're likely to go.
Yeah.
You know, it fear is the biggest driver, and a fear of not being good enough is going to drive you much more than the confidence of, oh, I can do this. And, what could go wrong? No one's going to die. I'll just give it a go and
The
see.
worst you're ever going to get in life is a
Yeah,
no.
yeah, that's right. I'm very much of the belief that, what's the worst that could go wrong? As long as nobody's life is at risk, I'm going to give it a go. But not everyone is like me. And so fear is so powerful. But the problem with drive that is derived from fear is that it is very mind centric.
Yeah.
And the problem with mind centric is that your mind can delude you, it can deceive you,
Yeah.
it can tell you that this is right, because of biases. People think, I'm going to do this and I want to do this, but actually there's a bit in our body that's going, you know what, this isn't such a great
Yeah.
idea.
I always tell my clients that our mind can justify anything we want in life, whether it's
Yes.
a good thing or a bad thing. If I did a Piers Morgan and interviewed, a serial killer, that person can justify why they did what they did. Likewise, if you speak to Bill Gates or Richard Branson, someone hugely successful, they're going to justify why they are successful as well. Which,
Yeah.
again, it comes back to that every moment our brain is going through that, almost like a Venn diagram, isn't it? It's like yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. If this, then that.
Yeah. So what, even though my entire business is around sales mindset, you have to be connected to your body and listen to your body, because your body never lies.
Yeah.
If you feel that like sense of like tension or uncomfortableness or contraction, you know that there is something not quite right about this situation. And it doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision. It maybe just means that you need to do a bit more digging, a bit more investigating, a bit
Yeah.
more research to.
Self-awareness.
Yes, it is all about self-awareness. And I say to in all of my programs, I say you need your mind and body connected to get access to
Yeah.
the wisdom that you need to be great.
Exactly. Out of a curiosity level, do you prefer working with someone one-on-one, where you can fully invest in their see every moment of their life almost, or do you prefer sort of the group corporate dynamics where you're seeing a big transformation on a potentially global scale? Because you've worked with some huge names, NatWest, British Airways. These are not just your local business that is
Yeah.
down the road. What fires you up more in a way that doesn't insult any of your current or past clients?
Well, I would say that most of my work is with groups,
Yeah.
because there is a dynamic there. And like, if you change one person, they can have limited the ripples are limited from that
Yeah.
one person.
Do you
But if
find
you
do you find that occurs more often in sales teams?
No, I think it's just in nature, like in humankind. But if you had say three founders in a startup, then they have their ripples,
Yeah.
and the ripples that they make themselves have far-reaching impact. So in the corporate world, there is bigger ripples because there's more dynamics. So you get peer group learning. So if one sales leader says, I did X and I struggled with it, you'll get another leader that goes, oh, well, actually, I did this and I got great results. So they learn from each other. And then when I'm not there, they can support each other. So it becomes like a support network. But there is nothing quite like working with founders and business owners in a group who then can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I do one-to-one, I would say less often, and normally only if there's a specific issue that needs that kind of
Yeah.
in-depth relationship. I think you get more from learning from each other. You don't just learn from me or from your own self, through coaching. Learning from others is just
Best way.
and
Yeah.
your body, when you have aha moments, releases oxytocin into your bloodstream. It's extraordinary.
It's
It's
like
like you give
it's like
yourself
what you said
self-love.
earlier. The child that's learnt to ride the bike for the first moment. the amount of joy that person is going to have because they look back and their mum or dad isn't holding the seat anymore, because they can do it on their own. That's such an amazing moment. And on a hormonal level, I'll be so interested to see what sort of hormones are being released at that moment.
Definitely oxytocin.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're doing something with a child, it's all, you love that child and you're so proud. And, I've taught a lot of kids to ride, being like a mountain biker. People, like all the relatives go, oh, will you teach Shimer how to ride a
Lee will
bike?
do that. Lee will do that for you.
Lee will do that. And so it's like that oxytocin, just, and your body, if you have an orgasm, sorry, take it to this level, but body,
who knew this going this way?
Fills up with oxytocin. It's like, and meditation, enlightenment, things like that, dopamine, oxytocin, flood your system. It's like,
it's all the good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
What we want. I'm curious to know if there was a founder or business owner that has a team and their sales leader or their sales director, because I feel like this misconception perhaps comes in a lot, whereas sales team leaders or sales lead directors that have sort of quite a good success rate, they may have an ego and people don't want to come in and approach them or try and help them because they're supposed to. How's the best way to communicate with that sales leader, sales director, to make sure that they're performing at their best, but also to have that two-way street, I guess, because you don't want them to just be their own sort of path and running off into the future?
Well, there is the quality of sales leadership in the world generally is pretty poor.
Interesting.
And I don't think that that's their fault necessarily. I mean, ego definitely gets in the way. Mm-hmm. It's the killer of great leadership.
Yeah.
But I think that when most sales leaders were like me in that they've been very successful at sales and then they get promoted to sales leader. And there is a whole different set of skills required to be a sales leader. You are not the star of the show. It's not about you. It's about your team. And I think that sales leaders often, and I understand why they think that and why companies think that. They think that it's the job of the sales leader to bring in the numbers, and that is a misconception. The job of a great sales leader or any sales leader is to develop their team and lead their team in a way that every day their team get better and better at what they do.
Keyword being leader.
Salesperson's job to bring in the sales. It's a sales leader's job to create the culture, leadership and learning requirement in order for those people to show up as their best self every day.
What are some of the red flags that would show that has perhaps a great salesperson that wouldn't make a great leader?
Well, I would say if they've got no humility or empathy, they're not going to be a great leader. I'm not saying they could never be, but they're not a good automatic choice. They couldn't step into it. Anyone that does a lot of telling, it will not be a good sales leader. You want to do it like this.
Yeah.
Anyone who you constantly hear them saying, you want to do it like this is how I do it. If you do it like this, you'll get the result.
But that's a really interesting point you bring up, because if you look at any sort of, I guess, mainstream, very large sales training people out there, a good few names come to mind that I won't mention. But let's just say, he's had a hit movie. They do exactly that. They say, look, this is how you need to sell. Follow this exactly, and it will work for you. And I've always gone on the belief, which is exactly the same as you, I think, where it's like, no, you've got to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what style is going to make you thrive. Because a lot of what you see taught, especially, coming out from America, is so like outdated still, and just doesn't. I feel like people don't have the patience now to just learn to have a conversation, learn to know that, you know what, you don't have to sell someone on that first conversation. Perhaps spend that time and again have that patience to find out, like you said, what do they love doing outside of work, find out who that person is, because you're much more likely to breed a much more deeper connection to that person, and in turn, like you said, that sale will come. And actually, if it doesn't come, other good things will come from it anyway, let's face it, because it's a great conversation and a great relationship. But what's your view on that kind of thing, because it's such a large proportion of sort of sales training market, which just seems to shout really loudly about that sort of, hey, this is the 5-step sales process that if you follow this, you're always, you know, you're going to become a millionaire or something, that unfortunately a lot of people get sucked into, and then guess what, they don't become millionaires, surprisingly. I mean, I'm shocked.
Well, my view is the day of, there's been a lot of people that have made a lot of money on this is my foolproof way, buy
Yeah.
it and you'll have success. I think people are getting a bit tired of all that nonsense. And there's no replacement for trying things and getting the experience yourself.
Mm.
There is no strategy on the planet that you can do straight off and be great at it straight away and make money straight away. I've been in sales for over 30 years. I've had my own business for 25 years. That doesn't mean I know everything, because,
Yeah.
the thing is, even me, with all of my experience, the world is constantly changing. So you have to change with it. One strategy doesn't work all of the time. So
Exactly.
this year I've had to change strategy because we do a lot of live training. Well, guess what? No live training allowed, no travel allowed. So all those people that used to come in from all around the world, so it's about, do you look at people's stuff? Of course you look at people's stuff. You evaluate its benefits to you,
Yeah.
and could you adapt it to suit your personality? So I'm a believer in looking at everything and then discarding it or testing it out. And I always think you should test something out at least 3 times before you know how to tweak it. Because people might do it once and go, oh, that was rubbish, it didn't work. But it could be you that, you didn't do it in the way that it would work.
Yeah.
So for me, it really is about explore stuff, but not only sales stuff. I was a judge in the Women in Sales recently, and we were interviewing the finalists. And one of the finalists, such a just so inspiring, these people. She said to me, what advice would you give me on this early part of my journey? Because I was judging like business development. So these are like salespeople that can
Great
be
question for her to ask as well.
yeah, great question. And I said, develop yourself. Don't wait for your company to develop you and put
Mm.
you on courses. Read books, listen to podcasts, get on videos on YouTube, TED Talks. Everything is out there. The world is a learning zone. So make sure that you develop yourself, but please don't only read sales books. What would you recommend? I said, read books on spirituality, on mindset, on neuroscience.
Yeah.
Read stuff that develops you as a human being. Then everything becomes easier.
Exactly. I mean, you said something a minute ago, or you implied something a minute ago, I should say, that actually the moment you think you know everything, it's when you're kind of at your weakest spot, I feel. If you're always in that development process, and I completely agree. I think a lot of people go down into the development world and only focus on one side, so only read like sales training books, and that's all they're reading. But actually, if they do read other books like neuroscience and even books that have nothing to do with personal development as well,
Yeah.
but just share a story in a really powerful way, they're gonna take something away from that, which is so crucial. Which is really fantastic to see that you're massive ambassador of that. One of my final questions to you, Leigh, is what's your favorite part of your job? What's your favorite part of doing what you do?
It's really engaging with the clients. For me, engaging with the clients and seeing those neural pathways light up. Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. Is like such a joy.
Those pin drop
Think,
moments.
yeah, I love that. And knowing that as that happens, that flood of oxytocin's going in,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, so brilliant. And so that is really special. But also, I really love the process of sales. I love that discovering
Mm,
what makes someone tick, what would make their job easier, what would make the sales force work in a more
yeah.
harmonious way
And then
that isn't
seeing it
toxic,
happen.
and seeing it
Yeah.
unfold. It's like, I just think, sales and being a founder is such a wonderful privilege and an
Mm,
opportunity. And every founder needs to understand sales, because honestly, they are always the best salesperson because they have the passion for the business. And in the way that you talked about, you can see my face light up, and I'm totally passionate. There are salespeople that can do that, but it's never quite the same as when a founder does
yeah.
it.
I mean, that's often one of the biggest struggles for founders as well, isn't it? It's bringing on someone else, like a sales director or a BD person, to be able to communicate the passion in that manner. And I guess that's a great tip for founders. It is, rather than bringing on a salesperson just to think, hey, they're going to sell this product. You want to bring them on to be like, hey, they're going to share the passion. They're going to almost share the responsibility of sharing the passion as well. Because when you see a founder on stage speaking about their startup or their business or whatever it is they're doing, like you said, there's no one better in the room to speak about that within reason.
Yeah.
It,
And they really need to employ people who have that passionate,
yeah,
like, in them as naturally. And also, it's really important for founders to share that passion. It's no good keeping it in themselves.
yeah,
So at the beginning of every year, we get together as a team and I say, remember what we're here to do. We're here to transform.
yeah.
We're here to change lives. Yes, we deliver sales mindset training, but our training has an impact on all areas of a person's life. So this is what we're here to do. It's our responsibility to deliver programs where people feel happier, more confident, have more self-belief. That's what we're really here to do.
And that's why you do what you do, Leigh.
Yeah, that's why I do what I do.
And that is a fantastic way to end this podcast. But my final question is the most important, obviously. How can people find out more about you, Leigh?
Well, I am very active on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I am Leigh Ashton 1. As an early adopter, someone who's an eternal learner, as soon as anything is new out there, I have to go and explore. So I must have been the first Leigh Ashton on LinkedIn. So if in any doubt, my profile is Leigh Ashton 1. And also my website, sales-consultancy.com. I do a weekly blog that is all about sales leadership. So if founders are a little bit nervous about that, then, and they often are, to be fair, then
Yeah.
the blog is a really great place. There's an archive full of, I've been writing blogs for years, weekly. So there's a whole archive of stuff in there.
Fantastic. Leigh, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And you are surely someone that is a wizard at what they do.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to have been able to share it with you.
Fantastic, Leigh. Thank you so much, and everyone else, thank you for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.